Hi, everyone. Cynthia Satterlee here. And today I want to share with you one way that you might use AI to help you give feedback to students and to sort students and plan for small group work. So I'm going to voice over this video here. One of the programs that I've learned from one of my colleagues is to use Claude, and that's the program I'm going to be using here. So let me take you through a process that you might replicate when sorting through student writing to help you form small groups and to give some really great feedback to your students. Here we go. So here we have a class of fourth grade literary essays, and I've uploaded them to a Word document. And one thing that you're going to notice is that I'm just using first names because I prefer not to give AI all the information about my students with their first and last names. So I've separated the essays by name, which helps AI know which essays belong to which students. And this is going to be helpful when we go to sort students into small groups. What you'll notice is I opened up Claude, and right here with that little paperclip, I'm going to upload the literary essays, my fourth grade literary essays. And in the little chat box there, I'm going to give some direction to AI. Like I said, I'm using Claude, and this is a tool for teachers because you need to be 18 years or older to use it. And what I'm asking Claude to do is to first act like a teacher. I want Claude to read through these fourth grade literary essays. And specifically, I want them to name the sort of trends that they see. I want them to also be thinking about the student readiness and next steps. After I've given the directions to Claude right there, and I've also uploaded my document that had my literary essays, I'm going to send it into AI. And as I wait, AI is generating lots of different ideas, specifically thinking about what are the students doing well, and also thinking a little bit about what are the next steps. What are the next steps when it comes to whole class teaching in my writing workshop, but also what are some of the next steps when it comes to small group work. So after Claude has finished generating some different ideas, you'll notice that they are noticing some different trends. So theme is something that has popped out, naming evidence and citation patterns, noticing organizational structure. I love that Claude is naming out a lot of different strengths that he's seeing in my students. I also like that now they're giving me next step recommendations. They're giving me recommendations for what I could be doing in writing workshops, ways that I might even scaffold my practice, ways I could differentiate my support. And at the end right here, what you'll notice is just a little snippet of what I could be doing next. So my students need structured support to develop their analytic writing skills further. Okay. And it says through a combination of whole class or small group. Great. So now I can think about my whole class, but I'm also going to now think about what could I do for small group work. And so I'm plugging into Claude to please group these students into small groups based on their readiness. I want them to name out the most important point that they think I can work on, right? Because I don't want to plan for small groups that have lots of different teaching points. I want to think about what is the one thing that I think is going to move this writer or this group of writers forward. As you can see, Claude is generating lots of different ideas for me. They are separating my students into different groups. And so as I scroll up, what you're going to notice is that the first thing that Claude does is they're going to name out maybe a big idea of that group, which is thinking about advanced theme analysis. Within that group, I'm going to have Teddy, Henry, and Danny. There's going to be a key focus. And I love that, again, that they're naming out the strengths. They show a strong command of essay structure and they can identify themes. But the next steps for this particular group of students and what they're highlighting there. I go to my group 2, another skill that they could be working on, the students who are going to be in that particular group, and the key focus for those students. As I go down, what I'm hoping that you're noticing is that there's a lot of different types of groups that I could be pulling. I love that there's a key focus. I love that they're saying what their strengths are, which would be like our complements. But I like that they're thinking about what is the one thing that's going to move these students further. So one thing I could do is I could stop here and I could open up my supporting all writers, and I could take a look at my supporting all writers unit or my spiral bound within my new units of study. And I could think about which small groups would match some of these skills that these students need to work on. Or I could take Claude one step further. And right now, what you'll see I'm plugging in is, can you create some examples of theme and or clear thesis statements and maybe some not so clear thesis statements? This is going to serve as some of the materials that I'm going to need for one of those specific small groups. I envision that the students could kind of sort these into different categories. So one, I've planned, or I thought about who's going to be in my small groups, what are they going to work on? And now I'm thinking about what are the materials that I'm going to need in order to teach this small group. So I'm not letting Claude do all of my work, right? I need to think about what I know about best methods of teaching. And I think sorting and partnerships within my small group might be really helpful. So Claude has generated these ideas for me where um, either strong thesis statements and maybe some weak thesis statements. I also like that Claude did take into account the text that my students were writing about within the literary essays. But as I'm reading this, I am kind of a little bit confused by what are the clear thesis statements and maybe what are not the clear thesis statements. I do like I said, that they were using some of the texts from the essays that my students were writing about, but I want Claude to make this the difference between the thesis statements, the correct thesis statements, and the maybe not correct thesis statements very clear. Also, I don't want them to practice again with texts that they were already writing off of. I'm going to ask them to maybe think about some more relevant texts. If I had some specific texts in mind that I know my students have not necessarily written literary essays off of, but they're familiar with, I could also plug in those. All right, so Claude bounces back and look how much clearer that is. A big X to tell me that it's not a clear thesis statement or theme statement, and a check if it is. What I like is now I have a couple different texts that my kids are probably familiar with, but they haven't written literary essays off of yet. And now my final step is I want a printable version of that document that they just created. All right, so I'm going to stop here. And one of the things I want you to be thinking about for your classroom is AI could really help you with sorting some of your writing, class writing, and to help you think about what's your whole class teaching, also thinking about what's your small group, and taking a step further to help you prepare for those small groups. Hope this is helpful. So long, everyone.